Hi guys, Luna again. So I just did a video about hedge writing, and first of all, I wanted to explain why I ended so abruptly. I had someone pull into the drive and had pretty much covered the entire subject and didn't want to be overheard talking about hedge writing when these people exited their car. So that's one of the reasons that I kind of cut it quick. So I wanted to explain that, and then I wanted to talk today a little bit about hedge writing and ancestor healing or shadow work. I got a few questions, so I thought, why not just try to answer them. So I'm going to be honest, this subject is not easy to explain, and so I've made some bullet notes of the easiest route I think to get to it would be. So I'm going to try to explain it, and we're going to talk mostly about ancestor healing and how we go back and heal our ancestors so that their karma and karmic debt can be paid for and released. And this, of course, makes it easier on us because we're carrying that karmic debt. So the first thing is, I'm sorry, give me one moment. So the first thing is to remember that most ancestors have some need for forgiveness and healing, whether it be due to racism, war, out-and-out murder. Anyone who participated in the Civil War, the Korean War, the Vietnam War, the Native American War, on either side, slavery on either side, there is karmic things to be taken care of. So, and regardless of nationality, most of our ancestors have this need of healing and forgiveness somewhere, whether it's healing or forgiveness or a combination of the two. So you may know of a story of, a great who participated in who may need some karmic healing, or maybe they need some universal or karmic forgiveness, or both. So that's what we're going to kind of work on. So no matter the healing is, no matter what the healing is, or the forgiveness is, they're pretty much done the same way. So the first thing you do is, as we already discussed about writing the hedge, is you enter the hedge. And you go to a healing area in the other realm. Whether this is the lower realm or the middle realm will honestly mostly depend on your experience at writing the hedge and which location you can get to easily. Normally, when we first start out, we're only able to get to the lower realm. After being in it a while, we can then get to the middle realm. Upper realms are much harder and take a lot more experience and practice. So we're going to talk about the lower realm today because that's where most people who are starting out and really just starting this stuff will be able to get to. So we're going to say that you enter the hedge and you go to the lower realm. Now, on the lower realm plane, you're going to want to go to a place of healing. How do I get there? I don't know the lower realm. So if you have a relationship with your animal guide or any guide, they can take you to a healing location in the lower realm. Now, whether this be something in your mind's eye that is a, stone circle with an altar in the center and a table, or a healing circle, or maybe you have a cabin like I have, or a place of healing. And in my cabin, I have a circle with like a treatment table in the center, and that is my healing area. It doesn't matter what you have for healing, as long as you get to a spot of healing. And when you are going into this hedge work, you're going to bring with you some items. You're going to have a small area in front of you to set some items. And one of the items you're going to want is tobacco. Another item you're going to want is either coffee or maybe beans. I know it sounds funny, but our ancestors were much different than we were. Tobacco is an ancestor offering. It's just a generalized ancestor offering. But beans were a good nutritional meal back then. So bringing some beans to the offering table is a good idea. Some coffee. Coffee was hard to come by, and a very prized possession if you had it. Tea would be another one, or even right down to fruits and vegetables. But you're going to want to bring some offering. As I explained in the hedge writing video, I have a table right in front of where I sit on my cushion, and I can set up this table with offerings. If you don't have a physical offering, it's okay when you get to the lower realm to visualize this offering that you're giving. So let me backtrack a little bit. So I have a cabin. It's a healing cabin on the lower realm. This is where I go to do healing for ancestors, for people I take with me there, for family members, whoever I'm doing healing for. In my cabin, I have a circle. In the center of that circle is a healing table, a treatment table, if you will. And at the head of that treatment table is a small altar. When I go into my cabin, the small altar is where I lay I actually have water, salt, some stones, a plant that sits there at all times. And then I bring in tobacco, coffee, beans, fruits, vegetables, and I set those on that offering table in the other realm. Now, I know this sounds like a whole bunch of imaginary baloney, but I'm telling you, if you're actually hedge writing and you are on the other realm, this is not made up. This is not to be taken lightly, and it is not just a visualization. You are actually going to feel things happening. If you are in an altered state of consciousness, you are going to feel things taking place. So it's important that we get to that state, that altered state. So once you go to your healing place, you've got your offerings. You're going to think of the ancestors that you have in mind to heal today. Can you do a group ancestor healing? Of course you can, but it's going to be a lot more effective if you can make this a much smaller group or a singular person. So if you know of a particular ancestor who has an act in their past that may need to be forgiven or healed, or maybe they've been through something and you know about this story of a great somebody who needs healing, or who had committed a certain act that needs forgiveness, or had taken actions that were, derogatory for their karmic value, you might want to concentrate on this person. So when you get to your healing area, you're going to ask your guides to come forward, your deity to join you, and then you are going to ask this particular ancestor to step forward and into the healing circle, or onto the healing table, or whatever situation you're doing. Excuse me. I am at work, so I'm hoping that we don't get interrupted. Okay. So the first thing, once they're in this healing area, that you want to do is acknowledge the act, the action, the sin, whatever word you want to use for it. You want to acknowledge that it happened. So we are going to for example's sake, we're going to talk about the Native American War. And in this, we're going to understand that I have Native American ancestors. So a lot of people are probably thinking Native Americans don't need to be forgiven. Well, they do. They committed acts as well. We all did. Was it in self-defense? Yes, but it was an act of murder. Sometimes treason, sometimes rape and kidnapping. So either way it goes, regardless of the reason they committed these acts are karmically detrimental. So we're going to talk about the Native American War as far as reference goes. So we are going to acknowledge the act or the action or the sin or the situation that we're discussing. So let's pretend we have Chief Rainbow from a certain tribe who led his people into an ambush and cannot get past it. Let's do that. Let's talk about that. So the first thing we're going to do is acknowledge the act. Because from this ancestor's point of view, whether we agree or disagree, he did something horrible. He led his people into an ambush. And that was his fault. They were his people. He was in charge. He shouldn't have done that. This is what happened. This is the act. Whether we agree with it or disagree with it is beside the point. It was his act. And so we're going to acknowledge that. The act is Chief Rainbow took his people into an ambush and they were just annihilated. So the second thing we're going to do is look Chief Rainbow in the face, and from the bottom of our heart, we are going to forgive him. We are going to tell him, you are forgiven. I forgive you. I love you. I send you healing and love, and I forgive you. You may get a very strong reaction from Chief Rainbow over that. Chief Rainbow may not feel he deserves our forgiveness or understanding or healing. So, again, things are going to happen. The third thing we're going to do is explain to Chief Rainbow why he did what he did. What other choice did he have? Or did he? Did he have another choice? Because what we want is for Chief Rainbow to understand for his own forgiveness that he did the best he could at that moment. This is important. He did the best he could at that moment. He made the decision based on the facts he was given and did the best he could. So we are going to explain to him why he may have committed the act or action. And then we are going to explain to him that our actions do not define who we are. They are what we did. Who we are is not defined by what we did. Is it reflective? You bet. But it does not define who we are. So we're going to explain that. And then we are going to give him some reasons as to why it's a forgivable act. And this takes some work on our part. Ancestral healing is not to be gone into lightly, and it's not to be considered, a simple fix. It's a deep, involved work and can take more than one visit for one atrocity. So we're going to explain that to them and let them know that the actions don't define who they are. And then we are going to let them know that everyone deserves forgiveness. Everyone. and ask them, if your son had done this with the knowledge you had and the facts that you had, would you forgive them? And we're going to try to explain it in a way that shows them that he did the best he could. And then fourth, we're going to ask the guides, the gods, the deities, and the universe to forgive them and help them heal from this act, atrocity. And then we are going to ask the universe, the gods, the guides, and everyone to heal those who may have been injured or harmed in this act. Chief Rainbow is in the circle. He is seeing this all happen. He's seeing that we are not just forgiving him, but we are trying to repair his actions by healing those who were harmed. And then the next thing we are going to do is ask those who were harmed to please understand why Chief Rainbow did what he did, and ask them to forgive him for the harm that his actions had caused them. And last but not least, this is the hard part. Now, what I'm talking about, I'm giving this to you in a 10-minute discussion. This is hours of work. So keep that in mind when you go over there. This is hours of work. This is not something you're going to accomplish in a 20-minute visit to the other realm. But this is hours of work. The last thing we're going to do, the sixth thing, is we are going to ask Chief Rainbow to please forgive himself and to allow himself to heal. To forgive himself and allow himself to heal. And this is going to be the hardest part. This is going to be the toughest sell. You may get resistance from the ancestor you're trying to forgive or heal. They may feel that they deserve the karmic bind that they've got going on. The restraints that have been embedded in them for centuries. They may feel they deserve that. Centuries, years. So you may get some resistance here. But all in all, you've basically done all you can do for this act or this action. So the first thing you did was ask them to step forward, called them by name if you knew it. You acknowledge the act or sin or action. You forgive them from the bottom of your heart, and you mean that shit. You've got to mean it. You have to actually forgive them for what they've done. Then you ask them to forgive themselves. And you explain to them why they may have committed these acts. Remember, we are not our actions. They define nothing about who we are. They just define the act. And then we ask the guides, gods, and universe to forgive them and heal them. And then we ask the guides, gods, and universe to heal these people or beings who were harmed. And then we ask those who were harmed to forgive Chief Rainbow. And now we're going back to Chief Rainbow after this entire ceremony, after all this work we've put in, and we're asking him once again, please, Chief Rainbow, can you see why you had no other choice? And can you now forgive yourself? Now, Chief Rainbow's going to do one of two things. He's going to forgive himself and be ready to move on, or he's not. And this is why ancestor work takes so long. Because if Chief Rainbow is not ready to forgive himself, you are going to be working on that in a continuum. This is something you're going to be dealing with for a while. If he is willing to forgive himself, then his karmic debt for that act, not for everything, but for that act, can be released now from him and from you. He is going to be better. He's going to feel better. When we're all done and everything's finished, whether or not he has agreed to forgive himself, we are going to give him a healing. And now this healing can be in any form that you decide to make it: a Reiki healing, a drumming healing, a stone, a crystal healing, any type of healing you feel motivated to do at that time, we're going to do for him, whether or not he forgives himself. If he'll allow it. Most times they do. And then we are finished with that session. Whether or not it worked, you'll know. You'll know that if you need to come back to that later, or more often, or again. But the last thing we're going to do is give a healing to Chief Rainbow. And then we are going to release Chief Rainbow from the circle. And we are going to make note that the victims, or I don't know if victims is necessarily the right word, depending on, what the situation is. Chief Rainbow's tribe that he took into this ambush were not his victims. So victims is not really necessarily the best word in that situation, but those who were harmed, we are going to come back to and heal more. And we're going to spend some time on this atrocity, this act, this action, this one. And all that being said, you can see why ancestor work can take years. Ancestor healings can take years. Ancestor shadow work, it's very much along the same lines. It takes years. So we are going to, for the sake of this video, say that Chief Rainbow was convinced that he did what he had to do. He did what he thought was best, and he is going to forgive himself. Next, we're going to make note that we need to work on healing those who were harmed by his actions. And then we can go ahead and release and be done. And I'm sorry, I've got my 6 eyes on because I'm reading. And we can go ahead and release and be done and come back from the other realm and, set a time up to work on some of the people who were led astray in this. Eventually, in this, we are going to get to a point where Chief Rainbow was healed. And also, the people that he was running from are going to get healed. We are going to make this a complete circle. I think I've covered everything. So that is basically the gist, a very, very simple, short idea or instruction on how we do some ancestor healing, some karmic release, and that type of thing. So I hope this helped. I hope it was what you wanted to hear. And let me know, and we'll come back to it if I didn't quite get there. And we'll keep revisiting this till I get everything answered. I think that's all I have to say. Okay, guys, love you. Please have a blessed day. Know your divine sacred beings of light and love. I love each and every one of you. Talk to you very soon. Bye.